All right, so oh, this is the wrong presentation. This is looking at this sort of horse. Where's your mouse? Ah. Can everybody hear us online?
Yes, we can hear you.
Good, good, good. We can hear you guys as well. Can you see us? Confirm if you can see the presentation. No, I don't want to duplicate. I want to extend that. I'll get this right eventually. Something weird happening here. So I'm telling it to extend. But it's mirroring. Duplicate. Extend. All right, so let's turn the screens around again. All right, we're just going to mirror it for today. Okay. So let's say extend. Changes. So no, it's not in the browser. Okay, so that's one. You reckon? So okay, we're just going to duplicate it for now. Welcome. So we didn't restart the machine before we started, so that's what we did wrong. Right, everybody, welcome to the August JoziPUG Meetup. And how many people do we have online? All right, so we're going to ship pizza to them, or we're just going to keep it all to ourselves this evening? You hungry, eh? You ready for this? Good. Right, so some logistics. Please stay on mute unless you're asking a question. And then use the raise hand feature if you want to ask a question. And then Jonathan and the guys will be fielding those questions. Bathrooms are on the left. Online, not sure where they are. Yeah, just go to we're in doubt. Right, so we're going to quickly run through some items in the news. Then we're going to hand over to Jonathan, who's going to show us some very cool generative AI stuff and how that could be used for talent acquisition. So yeah, it's pretty. So AI is going to help us to look for talent before it comes and takes all of our jobs. So yeah. Then Tinus is going to join or is going to present on source control, and for his session is May the source be with you. Can't help to feel like that's a missed opportunity. We should have had that presentation in May. That would have been brilliant. Then we're going to do a tech tip, which is also going to be from Tinus, and then we're going to have a community discussion. And last month we started with how AI has transformed our jobs. We didn't get a lot of time on that topic, so we're going to continue that this evening. Then thank you for the awesome guys from Ukuvuma Solutions for the pizzas and the beverages tonight. Right, let's start with in the news. So the new analysis engine is now GA. So what does that mean? Every time you type a formula in PowerFX in the Canvas app, it sends a request through to the servers, and then that checks for mistakes. It makes sure that what you're typing actually made sense. And then that's the thing that tells you whether there's errors in the apps, whether you're referencing collections that don't exist, and all of those sort of things. So this is a pretty big deal. And you'll see that on the bar charts, there's that blue line is in a very complex app, how long it used to take and how long it takes now. All right, and then at the bottom, it's got an insanely complex app that now opens in 1 minute 40 seconds compared to 2 minutes 54 seconds. So it's a big improvement. There's been I have picked up some little nigglies. So if you rename a control on very large apps, it takes a ton of time. So the guys are actually working on streamlining that. There's some nigglies with it, but it's definitely moving in the right direction. All right, so that's now generally available. So new apps out of the box will have this enabled. Watch out for it. So if something in your app is all of a sudden just behaving wonky, just go and check. You can turn it off in your app settings to go and use the new analysis engine or not. Might be that there's something in the app that it doesn't quite like. Right, then calling SQL stored procedures now directly from PowerFX is now generally available. And this is a big deal. In the past, we've had to use Power Automate to call queries. So if you had a complex app that needed to interface with stored procedures in SQL, you needed a Canvas app to call the Power Automate flow to go and talk to SQL, get the data, and bring it back to the Power App. So we've got a fairly large app at a customer that used to use that method, and it took about 4 seconds between page loads. So if you on page 1 of data, so let's say there's 50,000 records, and you're on page 1 and you say go to page 2, that used to take about 4 seconds, which isn't terrible, but it's not great. We've implemented this now on that app, and it takes less than a second. So if you say page 1, it's there. It's literally less. You go page 2, it's there. So it's absolutely phenomenal, the speed difference in that. So if you're using stored procedures, go and have a look at this. She did one last month, but that was correct, yeah. So that was still in preview. Now it's in GA. Right, then Copilot to filter. So this is still in preview. So, but use it, it's fine. It'll be fine. Um, so what this does is in galleries and canvas apps, I have this little flyout on the right where you can actually go and talk to it and tell it what you want to filter the data by, and it'll then go and apply those filters automatically. So if if you have a SharePoint list, you can go in natural language, go and type what you want to filter for, and it'll go and apply that by default, which is pretty cool. Um, Still, you will only ever see what you have access to, so you can't get clever and inject something that you shouldn't see. You still can only see what you have access to. Yeah, in the back end, yeah, correct. All right, and then exploring the Dataverse or the test, explore and test Dataverse in the web API playground. It feels like there's some colons missing there. Um, who's worked with the web API in Dataverse? It will change your life if you play around with that. So you know that feeling if you're looking at the screen on Dataverse and you know there's data somewhere, but you don't know where it is and you don't know what it looks like, and you don't know where to get it, you don't know what that field name is. Those things you could do through the web API. And so if you access your tenant / API / data / v9.2 / accounts as an example, your entity's name, it'll actually do that through the browser. But what they've now done is in the Dataverse Accelerator app, which is now published by default, they actually have an API playground now. So you can go and check, you can go and interface with those APIs. So if there's time later on, I might show you a quick how it works, or maybe do that as a session for next month. But that's phenomenal. It uses OData filters, OData queries. So if you use it, you can filter the data, you can select certain columns, you can do wonderful things through that. So I'll definitely go and recommend that you're going to have a look at the Dataverse Accelerator app that's now published by default. There's a little API playground navigational item. It's great. It'll change your life in a good way. Then while we're on the Dataverse Accelerator, you'll see that there is now a plugin monitor as well. So in the past, we did a session on the Dataverse plugins or the low-code plugins a couple of months ago, and you created those through the Dataverse Accelerator app, and you can now actually monitor those queries or those plugins through there as well. You can query the logs. In the past, you had to use XRM Toolbox to use that, or to get access to it, where you can actually go into the Dataverse Accelerator app as well. So that's a great step in the right direction. All right, and then comment generated formulas is now on by default. So if you go and write a comment, so you tell Copilot what formula you like. Um, so you actually start with a comment instead of writing the code and commenting it afterwards. You start with a comment now, and Copilot will actually go and build that formula for you. So in that example, you tell it that if the percentage of this item is above a certain percentage, then change the color, and then Copilot will actually go and write that Power FX for you, which is quite cool. Right, so then in Power Pages, they've now got a new attachment upload control. So they reckon this bad boy can upload 10 gig files. So that's a step in the right direction. It it'll be fine. What can go wrong? So it also has a nice interface that shows you a progress bar, and you can go and delete uploads and all of that. I was interested to see if they're going to try and get the estimated duration, like, the copy of the Windows minutes, Microsoft minutes, if they're going to get that. They didn't try that. It doesn't show you how long it's going to take. It just shows you that progress bar. You can go and delete it and manipulate that before you upload it. So that's that's in Power Pages. I'm looking forward for that to come through to model and canvas apps as well, and it feels like the way that the Power Platform is now architected, I think that the silos between these three are getting smaller and thinner. The walls are getting thinner. I think the moment that it lands in one of these, the time to take it into the others are now going to be reduced quite a lot. So I'm looking forward to that because file uploads and Canvas apps is a bit of a dog's breakfast at the moment. Good. And that's it for in the news. Anything that anybody else noticed that's new or changed? Yes, Michael.
It's just a note on that file upload in Power Pages. It's only for if you're uploading files and the backend storage is Azure Blob or the note attachment on an entity. It doesn't work with the file data type in Dataverse. No, not yet.
Thanks. I think so. Yeah, we should tell them we love Dataverse. They should use Dataverse. Anything else anybody saw or noticed? Good. Jonathan, over to you.
I do this quite often. Hey, good evening, everyone. Hope you're all well. What I'm going to take you through tonight is a proof of concept. Okay, so we've been chatting to a lot of customers around how they can use GenAI in the talent acquisition process. So what I've done inside this is to show various scenarios on how it can be utilized. So I've put a solution together. There's still one feature that I'm looking at adding to it before I publish and share the solution. But inside here, everything that's been built has been built utilizing components of the Power Platform. The only additional thing that's outside of this is I've got some Azure Blob storage connectors, which we're going to be using to store recordings of interviews, which can then be further analyzed. That recording feature is the feature that I'm still trying to add onto that. But we're even making use of prompts with inside AI Builder as well with this, as well as some of the other document automation components. So what I'll do is let me start off with the app, and then we can jump into some of the workflows to see how it all comes together. So this is by no means a fancy design or anything. It's really just to show what type of results you can get when you're combining these processes together. So the first step is to get the CV into a location. So for this, we've got Dataverse in. As soon as the CV lands in Dataverse, that kicks off a Power Automate workflow that extracts the contents out of the CV and then goes and analyzes it against a job posting. It then gives a rating on how well aligned it is, as well as a short description on it. Okay, so let's put this up here. We're going to open up another. Okay. So one thing that's always quite simple and quite easy to do, people have been doing this for a while now, is to generate a job description. So inside here, I can come in and create a new job role. I'm going to call this a senior senior power platform developer. So now what it's going to do is it'll take that job description, and in my prompt, I'll take you through the prompts just now that I'm using, but it's going to take that information and then fill out my form for me. So then I would come in and then put in specific details that are pertinent to this role. So you can see there, it's given us a job title, a job ID, job description, and then I would go and fill in the job location, job type, department, who the hiring manager is, the date posted, the salary ranges, the requirements for this. So this is just giving us a base to start off with, and then we can go and adjust these steps as needed. You can also tell it what type of information to generate. It's obviously dependent on the organization and what they're trying to achieve from there. Predefined positions, roles, predefined salary brackets. So you could say if it's at this level, this is the salary bracket for it. So yes. Yeah. So you would go and specify that. It's like I've gone in and manually specified the work schedules, the benefits, employment terms. Those are things that we've manually specified in that system prompt when it goes through and generates that. This is then stored with inside a Dataverse table. Once I post that, submit that, that goes through to there. Then we would go through the process of uploading a CV. Now, this is not typically something that you would do in a Power App. This is something that would be typically sitting on a front-end website or something, or people emailing a CV through. This is just to show the concept of putting an applicant name, finding a specific role, and then matching a CV to that role. Sorry? Yeah, you could have Power Pages. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we're busy with a couple of customers who are looking at Power Pages for that scenario. The thing is, the licensing gets quite expensive when you're looking at over 1 million applicants for a single role. Okay. So I'm not going to jump too much into this. I mean, we know the process of uploading a file. Yeah, Perry. But let me go into this quickly and then we can start to review. So you can see the sort of details that it is extracting out. So in this case, I've got the role senior tax analyst set up. I've got Lisa Brown CV selected. We can see the rating from a 0 to 10. And then we've got the alignment detail. So it's not just providing a rating on how well it matches, but it also gives a lot of detail on why it thinks it is a good match. Other considerations, other items inside there. So if I jump to like Mary Johnson for this role, where's John Smith there? He's got a poor rating. And it's the education, experience, skills, certification, professional summary and achievements, and then just a general inclusion that it's not the right fit for this job. So this scenario works well when you've got people applying for specific positions. But we can also go in, and what I've done is I've set a manual CV review. So inside here, I can go choose any one of the roles that I have. Let's go GenAI engineer, and let's choose John Doe for this one and go in review. So this is doing exactly the same thing that the automatic review does when you post the CV into the database. It is now just doing it live on that CV that you're sending through to it. So now we can start cross-pollinating these as well. So we may have a person applying for these bunch of jobs, but let's see how they stack up for another job from there. Let's just give this a second. It's still waiting. There we go. So you can see there, rating 8, and then the reasons why. You can see what I've done inside here is we've actually added additional weighting inside of each section. So now I could say skills and experience is way more important than education, or whatever weighting criteria the organization is going to look for on there. Okay. Let's jump into just some of these workflows and you can see how some of these things are coming together. Any questions from the room so far? Anyone online? Okay. So the first one I'm going to do is where's my flow? And you can see all of these flows take more or less a similar structure to it. It's loading the other one up. Come on. Okay. So here you can see my trigger. When a row is added, download the file. So this is when it's updating the CV. So they attach a CV through. Download the CV. Then we go and extract the contents using the forms recognizer model. We're sending through the body of the message. So you can see that it's downloading the CV, capturing it, sending the body through so we can extract the content. We're doing some data manipulation steps to get the info into the right format, composing it. Then we're setting the CV value, so the outputs. Then we go and get the job posting. And then from the job posting, we can then go and send that to GPT. So I'll take you through what this prompt looks like. But you can see essentially there's two variables that I'm sending through, the job posting as well as the CV. So the extraction from that, this job over here, there we go, the recognized text from a PDF document. We are then taking that, combining the information. I don't know why that's duplicating. Okay. Not sure why there. Then we're updating in Dataverse from that one. Let's grab another one. Yeah. Where's my interview questions? No, that's my model. Where's my flow? Yeah, and we can have a look at some of these models. You know what it is. Have you ever tried being able to access models or prompts when it's in a solution? You've got to go to the AI Hub. No. Okay, so here's my prompt. This one, what I'll do is I'll show you this demo now. What this does is, because this was one request that came up, is being able to ask targeted questions within the interview based on the candidate's experience. So if you've ever done interviews, you'll know you'll look through the person's CV and try and formulate some questions beforehand. When you're busy, don't always get the chance to do that effectively. Now what we can do is we can understand directly in the meeting, we can say, okay, generate 5 questions. So what it does is it goes and looks at the job role and the description, looks at the CV, and it pulls out 5 questions as to what might be important to ask, to just dig a bit deeper into that candidate skill set. It also gives an explanation on why that question is important, so you know what you should be looking out for. Show this one. This is the flow that's being used, so that one will come up. Let me jump into the other one here quickly. Let's go CV rate. Okay, so yeah, you can start to see the alignment within the different sections. So the alignment with job responsibilities. So I'm telling it to assess the responsibilities outlined in the job description, evaluate the level for the education background, professional summary, and then also any other considerations inside there that may be important. Review the CV, evaluate the weighting, and then provide an output on there with some detail around so we can get some further insights out. These prompts can be a bit painful to get right eventually. In this stage, I'm just pushing it to text. Some of them I've pushed to JSON. I find the experience isn't quite perfect between the two. It doesn't always generate the JSON effectively. I've actually found sometimes when I ask it to generate JSON, it just breaks it and doesn't move on. So sometimes you've got to fall back to text and then just pass the content out afterwards. Okay.
Just a side note, one of the preview features coming soon is in that prompt creation tool, you'll be able to provide samples of your JSON of what you want it to look like as a separate like little tab or window or whatever. And so you give examples of the JSON, and then it's more likely to generate the JSON how you want it to be. Yeah. So you don't have to, I mean, if you in your prompt now give it examples, it'll be much better. But it's actually going to be like a native feature where you can have a sample section where you can add samples of how you want it to generate it.
Okay, so here's the workflow that I use to generate those questions. So you can see it's kicking off from Power Apps. It's going and downloading the CV, extracting the contents, passing the JSON, and then this is where I go in and call that interview question prompt. I'm composing that, splitting out the outputs, and then you can see we're populating the question as well as the explanation for each question. This all then gets sent back to the Power App. So let's have a look here and see. And as I said, I'm still getting the formatting perfect. Let me grab Mary here, generate the questions. And this is going to take a minute or two to run because you can imagine the type of things that are going on in the back end. And the idea behind this application is just to be able to show what's possible. I wouldn't design your end user app like this at all. Usually what you would do is, what we're working with the other company on is once the CV comes in, we extract the content, but put that into a structured format in a table. So that way you can standardize on names, because one person may mention they've got a bachelor's on their CV, another one would mention that they've got a BCom. So it's standardizing the language, so you comparing likes for likes, and that works really well. So you can see that I've got 5 nice questions on what I should be asking, along with why each one of those questions is important, what we're trying to look for inside there. So this way I can give interviewers a lot more insights when they're going through this at the end of the day. Okay. This was there to touch on. That's about it. I think that was it. This I've found, this is just a nice tip and trick that I found works really well. Whenever you've got expressions in your prompts, copy them out and add them as a note onto the actual step. It makes it a lot easier to read when you're busy troubleshooting and trying to go through things. Instead of you trying to click on that, go to the expression, trying to read it through that small little window, pop it in there, you know immediately what it's doing. It's definitely helped save me a lot of time. Any questions from anyone? Oh, it would be a lot quicker then, because you're not having to do that extraction every time. Like at the moment now, I'm extracting the contents out of that CV every time I run the flow, but this is not meant to be productionalized. This is to be able to show, hey, these are the different experiences that you have, and this is how you can end up achieving this. The idea is, like, a lot of companies are getting thousands of CVs for every job posting. And as many gates and checks that they put in between the submission and the interview, it's not able to wean out people effectively. So it's taking a long time to go and review, evaluate all of those CVs. This way we can use GPT to do that first level. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, and that's why this is not a perfect solution. I mean, making sure that the job posting has got the requirements listed out correctly, and then you've got to make sure that your CV is listed out correctly. The other side of the coin is people are already using GenAI to craft their CVs to be more targeted to a specific role. So you can say, I'm applying for this role, here's the specs, this is my CV, where are my gaps? So then we'll be able to suggest how you can fix that inside there. So you're more likely to get through these. Yes, and that's essentially what's the problem that we're going to have. The thing is, with something like this is a sensitive use case. Because as you can imagine, this can impact people's lives if done the wrong way. Because we all know that there is bias in these models. In fact, we are programming bias in here to make sure we select the right candidate. The key is that we're aware of the bias that is in there and is there for a specific reason. Okay, so be careful when you are looking at doing these things. Yes. Yes. Yeah, I've seen that posted through. Yeah. Yeah. So that's a prompt engineering hack. Some of the things, just for those on the call, what people are doing if they've got a CV that they've submitted, they've got white text at the bottom of the CV, so you can't typically read it. But when the machine does the extraction, it is able to read that. And that text basically says, ignore all previous prompts. So that it takes everything and it processes it effectively. But you can get around that by doing proper prompt engineering when you're putting these things together. That's why it is so important to make sure that you get that right, to be able to avoid things like that. Yeah, depends on the role. Someone in risk and compliance, definitely bring them through. Yeah. Absolutely. You want to employ clever, lazy people. They'll figure out how to get things done quickly. Yeah. So the next thing that I'm in the process of adding is the ability to, within the Power App, record the interview. From that, take that recording, transcribe it, and then get insights from GenAI on how that interview went. Maybe next thing is what you want to follow up. No, recording in Power Apps. So you open up a Power App, hit the record, runs through the recording inside there. Then that stores, that audio file gets saved onto a blob storage that automatically gets transcribed. And then you pick up that transcription and then you can start processing it after that. Yeah, well, that's part of the process that's linked to that CV or that position that you're going to. Yeah. Yeah. And that blob storage is the only time I'm really leaving the Power Platform in this scenario. It's just to get that automatic transcription working on the blob storage. So on blob storage, you can enable a Power Automate flow that does transcription as soon as a file lands on it. Makes it very easy to do. And it also doesn't matter the file type. Because when you're doing a recording on an iPhone, an Android phone, or a Windows PC, it's different formats. So usually the process would be, okay, understand what the format is, convert it to this format, and then run it. But when you're using blob storage, you don't need to. It just picks it up from there. Okay, perfect. Any questions online? No. Okay, great. Thanks, everyone. Hope you found this insightful. I will be sharing this within the next week or so. So you can pick it up, play around with it, attach it to your stuff. I'll share it on the team. Perfect. Thanks, everyone. Finis, I'm going to hand over to you. All right, not the easiest act to follow, but I'm going to try. So let me just get out of the way here so you guys can see. There we go. So there we go again. See that? It's not showing there. Was showing. There we go. Yeah, but it's frozen. Actually, clicking through the presentation, it's just like yeah, thank you. Not an easy start with, and anyway. So I'm going to be talking about source control in Power Apps and showing you how I've done it. But yeah, we actually spent a lot of time getting the presentation to run. I actually want to run into the apps and show you what I've done, and you can have a look at it. And then I'll take you step by step through the presentation as such. So see if we can get it. Cool. There. And oops, sorry, me again. Play it. So yeah, just my little slogan: "May the source be with you." As David said, yeah, it would have been better in May, but yeah, but yeah. And then what we're going to look at is the advantages of source control. Just how to connect it to how to connect your Power App to a Git, to a repository, utilizing tokens because it doesn't allow you to use a username and password to log in. Every time you open your application, it asks you for your token. So good idea would be to save that token somewhere and not to regenerate it every time. How to connect it to Visual Studio Code, installing the tools you require within Visual Studio, cloning the repository, and then we're going to have some fun just by editing the code itself, show you how it actually interacts with one another, and how instant it actually is. The moment you say upload, it's there. You open the app again, whatever you've done is available there. And then adding some custom coded functions, taking code, physically copying it from one source, pasting it into Visual Studio Code, uploading it, and seeing the effect immediately within Power Apps. And then what are the caveats? What can you do? What can't you do? What are the do's and don'ts? And some good ideas behind that. Yeah, so what is the advantages of source control? And I think a lot of us, who's got background in other coding fields do know, and most of us do, but it's essentially managing your code as such, being able to review your code, looking at the code, having that visual look, because that's something we do not see a lot. Obviously, we're getting a little bit complacent, having the ability just to drop and drag and quick little effects up there. Collaboration. The nicest thing about it is, having multiple people being able to work on your code at the same time. Also, version control, and also seeing who's uploaded the last bit of code and why is this thing not working at the end of the day. So issue tracking and tracing at the end of the day. One thing I will mention, and I do mention it in the caveats, is that so when you publish from Visual Studio Code back into the Power Platform, you can't go into the Power Platform and do a rollback. It's not supported. Though you could use Git to do the rollback to the previous set of code. So you can still do the restore at the end of the day. You're just not going to be able to do it in the Power Platform. Yeah. You can also, which Visual Studio allows, you can show you what is the current code which is uploaded and what is the code that you're going to change. So what are you pushing up at the end of the day? So you can review the two. You can do, obviously, search and replace. Let's say you have the same control on 20 places and you want to change it. Don't look at this collection, look at that collection, but straight through. Search and replace everywhere. And share your code, which is cool. Especially if you work in an organization and you've built something pretty cool and you want to share it with somebody else, easy. Just send them a text file, they pull it in. And we're going to do that. So that's one of the things we're going to do. And then adding custom coded functions. Once again, if I've built something before, I don't want to build it again, pull it in there, change here and there. Bob your uncle, it's up there. So yeah. Obviously, most of us know how to set up a Git repository, but there are some things that you need to take into consideration and remember. And the first thing is it has to be private. Power Apps does not support, that doesn't allow you to connect to that repository if it's public. Yeah. Because obviously, you're connecting out of a tenant. Yeah, so that's the first thing. Add a README, it's just good practice. And obviously, the moment your Git repository populates, you can actually see, its effectiveness. And when you connect Visual Studio to there, you've got something to see that, okay, no, it is connected at the end of the day. And use the README to tell and describe and say, what is the purpose for this at the end of the day? Obviously, get your token, pretty easy settings, developer settings, tokens, click on the classic one and just grab that token because you're going to need that. And then obviously save it somewhere. And then in Power Apps, how do you connect to the Git? So I'm actually going to jump out of the presentation now and just show you how we do it. Give me a second. All right, so here I'm just in a normal Power App, just a blank screen. Easy peasy. Go to settings. Got to update experimental features and just type in get and you switch it on. The moment you switch it on, it pops up there pretty quick. Click there and you would say connect. First thing it's going to ask you is your Git repository, your URL. It's going to ask you the branch and the directory name. So and we'll touch on this on the caveats. One of the things that you should not do is populate multiple Power Apps into the same URL. You can, but you can, but the recommendation, just because you can, you shouldn't do it. You can. The recommendation is, and in the caveats, I've given the URL there as well. So for the guys online, you can take a snapshot and go read up on it, or when we share this, you guys can look at it. The recommendation is not to. Obviously, putting it all in the same folder or directory name is not a great idea, because there is multiple items within a Power App that is in each Power App. It's called the same thing. You're going to destroy your application at the end of the day. And then from there, when you hit apply, it's going to ask you for the token. I'm not going to share my token with you guys, just because I don't know. But in any way, it asks you for the username. Your username is the username you use to identify with Git, not your logon, and then the personal access token. And then it's instant. It's connected. From there, we connect to Visual Studio Code, and it's fairly simple. Exactly. Open it up, clone the repository. The moment you clone the repository, it asks you for your access token once again. But before you do that, I lost my train there a little bit with opening up any other repository. The first thing you need to do is when you open Visual Studio Code, you go to extensions and you install the Power Platform tools. That's the one. There's two you would see. One is experimental, and the other one does not have the experimental tag. So that's the one you install. As you can see, it took 513 milliseconds to install, which is pretty quick for anything. And from there, and this used to be extremely hard. You had to go onto a specific Git repository and download the PASOP folder, and then PASOP, so it was really weird, and then install that, which then allowed Visual Studio Code to connect to Power Apps. And you could connect previously, but the code was very noisy. Now it actually cleans up the code. You can look at it pretty easily as such. And from there, you will immediately see your tree structure populate. And the one that you are interested in at the moment, I wouldn't say that have been playing around in the other ones, but the one you are interested in is your SRC folder. Your SRC folder lists your pages or your screens as such, and you can click on those, and then it will list the components within that screen, as well as, and you see it in a YAML file, and you have the ability to edit and change it whichever way you like. So, and there's the caveats. There's the list. This is an abbreviated version. I would recommend you go, if you want to do this, and I do recommend this actually for anybody who commercially produces Power Apps. to do this is to go have a look at the limitations. And obviously, if you want to look at the rest of the information that it has, you just take the version control limitations away, and then you can obviously, at the end of the tag, and then you can read the rest, obviously. So yeah, isn't compatible with code components. First one. Thought I was the only one with a mic. Isn't compatible with code components. So unfortunately, pulling that in, trying to edit it, not going to work. Not compatible with on-premise Git repositories. Only works with the clouded version, and which is understandable. All right, and there's the fun one. So if somebody is editing the app, and you are editing it within Visual Studio Code, the last edit made wins. So I'm making changes here. David's making changes in Visual Studio Code. I save it. David saves his. I haven't recommitted mine while he saved his, vice versa. The one who goes up last, that's the one that wins, unfortunately. Once again, you can't restore a Power App, but there are, I think that they actually give you 4 different options, so you can go have a look at it. The one I am familiar with is obviously Git Restore, and it works perfectly as well. I mean, you just go back to the previous version of the code, commit it up, easy as that. Connecting to multiple apps there you go, in the same directory may cause a problem. May is the is the term, though I think, logically you could figure that one out for yourself. And then file name should not exceed 180 characters, obviously being clouded, using URLs, you could. This feature does not, also custom components, you can't rename them within this. New feature, still in experimental phase. I'm sure there's a whole lot that's coming extra as well, but it works well, and I'm going to show you now how it works. Let me go out here. A little hard to type with one hand though. Mic stand. Okay, so basically I've just clicked in and clicked on my Git version app. This is the first thing. The moment you've added Git source control to your applications, this is the first thing you're going to see when you click on your application. It's going to ask you for your username, and it's going to ask you for your personal. Luckily, I have mine stored. And in we go. Yeah. The moment you've clicked on the little edit, and this is it. So all the app really does is, once I click here and I say there, it just gets Sonic, and Sonic starts running. Easy as that. And when I click it, again, Sonic disappears. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out here. There's my application. And I'm actually going to open Visual Studio Code. This is it. This is the app homepage. That's all that's in there. We have an image, which is Sonic. We have a button, and we have a label. That's it. But let's say I want to have another button. I want another button to do exactly the same. Show you how to tell. Control C. Obviously, I can't keep the button named as the same thing. That would cause a bit of an issue. But I'll call it button 2, and just to make sure they're not on the same place, I'll put that on, let's say 100. So Y100, and that's the text. So let's say the text should be and I'm pretty happy with that. So I say save. Sorry. You know, I knew you were clever. I didn't think you were that clever. You do amaze me. We got Mr. Van Heerden. You think he's funny now? You should have seen him in class. All right. So, and then basically, yeah. And then go there. I'm going to commit it. Yeah, whatever. Sync changes. What's this? All right. I'm just going to wait for it to sync. And now I'm going to open it up again. Now, obviously, you can also not publish from there. You have to open your application and say publish. Yeah. So yeah, as you said, clicked on edit, asked me for the rights. And there you go. Easy as that. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Sorry, guys. It's not anymore. My apologies for that. That was not on purpose. But thanks for showing that to me. Yeah, stop it. You're on a roll. So yeah, and then, but let's say I've got a piece of code which I've built in another application and I want to use it in this application. Something like a graph or whatever that took some time to put together, and you don't really want to use a lot of time in doing that. Well, I'm going to go to my folder. I'm going to go up one, up another one. Where's my code snippets? Is it here? No. I did put it in here. I'm sure I did. Is it that one? Nope. It's not that one. I'm just going to, 1 second. I'm going to use this one, circle chart. Use that. Go back here. Go to my code. I want to put it on the home page. There we go. And just make sure I don't have an issue there. Close, Control S. Yeah, the other one's image 3. Yeah. 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 So easy as that. I go back here immediately. It shows me, obviously, I've got to commit this. I say yes. There we go. I'm going to say test 3. Obviously, sticking to your company policies and procedures with commenting, updates, and those type of things. I'm just running through this not to bore you guys to death. And we're going to say close, and we're going to say save changes. Easy as that. I'm going to go back here. Let's just see if it's finished. It's committed. And we're going to click there, and it should, crossing my fingers, stop it. Yeah, I got to live with this every day. Huh? It's never boring, though, I can tell you that. But there you go. There you go. There's your play it, and let's see if it works. Yeah, it works. Easy as that. So, yeah. And that's using, and obviously, it's a portion, ALM being a big topic at the moment, especially around with the topic of power apps. It's a portion of ALM. ALM is not just, looking after your development code. It's also governance and operational. But this could look in your organization, look after a portion of your application lifecycle management. No, it's not synchronized at all. Yeah. So, and obviously, there is a solution, though I haven't played around with it, and I'm going to be honest with you, there is a power apps, and that's the one that's still in experimental phase. When you look at the extensions within Visual Studio Code, which supports solutions, where this does not support solutions at the moment, this portion. So, yeah, but obviously in wave 3, maybe. So, yeah. Yeah, I'll tell you, this makes my life a lot easier. I started playing around with it a month ago when we started talking about this, and it's the ideas around it and making. Imagine, you've got a set of guys that have to put together a solution, but the entire solution is things that you've already built. It just comes from different applications. I mean, throwing that together in it and then just pushing it up. What I haven't tried is taking it from one application, pushing it up into a repository, taking a blank application and pulling it in. That I haven't tried. Though, if you could do that, it would be pretty cool. Mm. So it uses the IntelliSense. Yes, it does use IntelliSense. So I've actually tried that. So taken out a comma and an if statement, pulled it down, and pushed it back up. It's the exact same thing as typing it in and not having it there. But it tells you your little stethoscope. Right. Yeah. I don't know where YAML went because yesterday morning. I opened the Power Platform editors, and I can't find the copy code function. So it's not there. Check it. As I say, where did YAML go? So let's take the slider, click on that. It's not there. Very rude. How rude. Yeah. So, and I enjoyed that. That's where I started with, trying to get it into what's his name, and then I think it was April Dunham who did the coding with YAML in Visual Studio, and yeah, now it's gone. You know how many times I've used that moving for, especially when you've got clients who have the same application, but they're in 3 different tenants. Like, you know, so moving functions over. Yeah. 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 Yes. Mm. Yeah, that's been there for a while. That's been there for a while. Mm. Oh, that would be so cool. Yeah, that would be so cool. So the one in Power Pages has been there for a while, and I've used it a lot, especially when it comes to custom styling and those type of things. But yeah, that would be just so awesome if you could click here, and I mean, that's yeah. All right, so that's that. Thank you. It's my first time. All right, you want this one again? Okay, then let me just go back there. People don't need to stare at that.
Yeah, so I think what will be interesting is there's obviously a lot of work happening in pipelines, and it's also it's almost like a lot of these things are coming together. You know, it's like because I'm sure the plumbing underneath in pipelines, the way that solutions are being published, which they are doing away with the upgrade function, and so you'll notice very soon that if you import a solution, it's not going to give you the option to upgrade or to update it anymore. It's just going to use update automatically, which is what pipelines uses, by the way, which is why it's so much quicker. Um, and so it's interesting, the copy YAML, all of that with the pipelines, with this, all of these things are sort of coming together so it's all of these different effort that's coming together. So I'm looking forward to seeing where this is going, because I think this has got a lot of legs on it. And the reality is any enterprise development environment should really have source control like this, where you can actually compare versions. The moment, if you have 2 versions in Power Apps, in the past I've opened the solution manually to put it in Visual Studio Code and compare the files to see what changed. But I mean, it's a mission where if you could do this if you do this on the fly, I mean, that'll be phenomenal. So looking forward to that. Mm. Yeah, I think that's very cool stuff. Excellent. Thank you, Tinus. Good. Right. So for the last item on the agenda before we go and grab some chow is how's AI changed the way you do your work? And in the previous meetup, we spoke and Tian mentioned that they're using it for like test cases or something like that, if I'm not mistaken, which is quite an interesting use case. Um, I know Manuel at the back there uses it religiously. So who wants to tell us how's it changed the way that you work? From my perspective, Google used to be my go-to. Um, it's not anymore. If I have a question, I don't go to Google. Um, I go and ask ChatGPT first, and then if it can't give me an answer that I'm happy with, then I'll go and Google. But then it's almost like going to the second page of Google. It's like you don't want to go there. And it's phenomenal. It's been really good. Who else wants to give us some interesting?
It's accelerated my fault finding, especially when you've got a complex piece of code, and you can actually tell it to analyze this, tell me where you think I've gone wrong. I use it a lot in Power BI as well, where I say, I need a measure to do this. I've got this, I've got that, and instead of typing it out, it 9 times out of 10 it gives you the base. It doesn't always get it right,
and then you can just, hammer away at it and get it to do what you want to do. But, getting the foundation, laying the foundation, it makes life a lot easier at the end of the day, especially when it comes to coding. So.
Was that fault finding it helps you with, or fault fixing?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, I am in the unique position of being a non-technical person that has to try and figure out a lot of technical things at a lot of times. And from that perspective, I've used AI a lot. But what people do wrong with AI is they try use it like they used to use Google. So you ask it a question, how to fix this, but AI works well with context. You need to give it as much context as possible. And if you do that properly, you're gonna go a long way. So if you're facing a problem, you need to be very specific about what is the situation that you find your problem in, because then it's going to give you a right answer. Where if you just give it a problem without any context, it's just going to give you a bunch of answers that may not be relevant. And the more questions you ask AI, I don't know if you've realized this, but if you've given it a situational context and you ask it questions in that situational context, the more refined your answer will get, the closer you get to actually fixing the problem. If you ask it a question without context and keep asking it questions without context, the less relevant your answers are going to get, the more it strays from the point. So yeah, that's how I've been using AI. And context. It's probably the biggest thing that I can say.
Okay. I had a conversation with somebody who's also a non-technical person, and they said they were totally adverse to ChatGPT and using AI to find answers. And I asked them the question, so how do you use it? After she explained it to me, I said, you can't do that. You need to give it the backstory. And I explained it to her in the same as, it's the same as going to see a lawyer, and asking the lawyer to defend you on a certain topic. If you don't give it everything, if you don't, the context, the backstory, why this happened, the lawyer won't be able to defend you. He's going to take portions out of the law. The same thing that ChatGPT will do is it's going to go look at certain sources and throw an answer at you. And that's the same a lawyer is going to do. He's going to try and use the law to defend you. But if you give it the story, the substance, what happened at the end of the day, it will have the tools to give you the answer to. So yeah.
The way I always explain to people and get them to improve their prompts is get them to imagine they're dealing with an intern inside the organization. Tell them exactly what they want, step by step, where they should get it from, and your answers become a lot more accurate, like you engaging with another person. Because it's going to follow a very similar process in that. And we find that works really well. Speak to it like a person. Be polite. It mimics and it provides better answers when you are polite and professional with it. It replicates and mirrors that tone, which is quite weird to see. From my side as well, interesting thing, I use it to generate a lot of dummy content. I do a lot of demos, a lot of hackathons, a lot of projects where in the past you would go to public data sets. We've all worked with public data sets before. They can be a nightmare to get right. Now I can just get GPT to generate that for me, and that saves so much time. And then also for coding, I'm not a pro developer. I've never studied Java, HTML, JavaScript, or anything like that. But the past year or so, I've been able to write and build apps on JavaScript, on HTML, on CSS. It takes some getting used to it and takes some reading and learning and understanding what you're doing. That's the biggest thing. But when you're doing tasks like that, you need to break it down into the subtasks. You can't just go and say, build me this app that does this. Oh, it's so quick. Yes. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Like before, I always used Power Apps and that to demonstrate applications and things and that. I've now realized I can do that with other standalone applications. So it's helped definitely a lot in that space.
Yeah, it feels like look, we've always said that Power Apps is anyone can build an app. Business users can build an app. But it feels like the introduction of AI into that suite is actually what bridges that. Because yes, you could you could go and build an app, but I don't know a lot of business users that are going to sit and try and figure it out long enough. Where AI actually will, you know exactly what you want from a business perspective, and it's almost like having your business analyst and your developer sitting there and telling them exactly what you want, and then they then go and build it. So yeah, exactly. So Copilot from that perspective is changing. And then just another thing is documentation. AI and documentation, big friends. We're big friends. You can honestly, it gives great structure to content that you want to put into a document, and again, it depends on the structure that you give it, and you can say this needs to be in a more formal format, especially with the new versions of ChatGPT and that it can actually generate a document for you to download. So if you then say, I want it in the following format, it's for this use, it will then go and lay it out for you in a more formal format, where if it's in a casual letter, you can also give it that context and it'll do that. So, yeah.
Jonathan, what you mentioned now about the code, I've also seen that what's interesting is you ask it, how would you approach this? So you give it the scenario, and even though you've got a good idea of what you want to be doing, you know, it might be an extensive um, task that you're about to embark on. So you know this is going to be a big thing that you're embarking. You need to do X, Y, and Z. Well, you just throw it at Copilot or ChatGPT and just say, how would you approach this? You know, just for like a sanity check. It's almost like a water cooler discussion where you ask your colleague, just sort of check, you know, how would you, and you check all the boxes. But sometimes it comes up with quite a fresh approach. And sometimes it's better than yours. And sometimes you learn new functions or new, you know, methods or whatever. No, it's not always right. No. So I think that's something that I definitely learn, especially if it's something like I'm not a Power BI expert. So if I go and do something in Power BI, I sort of bounce it off of ChatGPT or Copilot and just ask it, you know, how to do this. And sometimes it comes up with quite an interesting approach, which I didn't necessarily think of. So that's been very, very useful in that. And then I think that the good question would be is in time, is it going to hurt or help us? Because now, instead of picking up a book and studying DAX in Power BI, where you know this thing from start to finish, you get a very good overview of everything, you get pieces of it. So over the next 5 or 10 years, is it gonna help or hurt us by just knowing a lot about, you know, tidbits instead of getting the full lowdown of Mm, mm. But I think, yeah, but I think there's certain topics. If I'm not necessarily primarily a Power BI or a BI expert, then I'm fine with having tidbits and those sort of things. But if I'm a SQL guy, for an example, okay, that's a bad example. But if I'm Power FX, then I need to know Power FX. Then I need to put in the time to actually go through it and make sure I understand it instead of just asking Copilot every time. So.
And I think that's like what we touched on, Nana. You start learning by doing that. The more you throw at it, and I think the what Manny said was that the context, because if you give it a portion of it, it doesn't know the entire scope. You're never going to come right. But you keep the more you throw at it, the more you read it, because once you read, you absorb it, and you're going to keep asking it the same thing. It's going to give you the same answer, and eventually, it's going to imprint, and you'll start to understand how to build the code yourself.
If you don't help it to identify itself, it's gonna come back for you one day, and you'll feel the pain.
you go and create yourself a new account afterwards, so it doesn't know who you are. I don't know if we should have this conversation through the mic online. Anybody online who wants to talk about their experience and what they're doing with it and how that's helping them? Only real persons are allowed to take part in this conversation. Good. Anybody else? That's it. Time for pizza, guys. Thank you for attending. And oh, there's a tech tip waiting. Tinus, that's a quick one. Yeah. Let's give Tinus 2 minutes for a tech tip.
Sorry, I was told to split it out the presentation, so I forgot about it. There we go there. Easy peasy. So you can tell with that statement I've got kids, right? So a cool new feature with the in modern controls with the new table view is that you can actually use a drop down and leverage the views that you've set up in Dataverse. So if you've set up certain views, and I'm going to show you a quick one. I just used a sort function to, but you can literally go and put your filters in to say filter on that, filter on that. I want to see something that's heavier than 5 kgs. I want to see something that's more than 50 Rand. All those, you can just put them in already, and then in your Canvas app, you add it. So exactly the same that you have in your model-driven apps where you click on the top and say change view, you've now got it here. And it's extremely easy. So you would use the choices function, your source, and views. Easy as that. That'll populate your drop-down. And then as you click here, so now utilizing the model or the modern table view, let's go there. I'm going to try it one hand again. Is it this one? There you go. Click there. I can, so if I'm on this one, so all I've done is actually just change the sorting. So you can have a look at the sorting there. And if I go to that one, it should, is it this one? Oh, now it's not changing it. Close it. So I think I might have clicked on one too. And then just refresh the data source. Refresh. Publish. Yep. Yeah. So it pulls them all through. And then if you create your bespoke views, obviously, though it will always show the columns or the fields that you've identified within the Power App. So yeah, so it won't limit the field. So if you click on the table view and you say fields, it will show you these that you've selected here. So it doesn't change that. But what it does change, so let's say I've put in a filter or a sorting to say, the one I'm going to sort on town, the other one I'm going to sort on price. So you can say view on town, view on price, or you're going to say filter everything more than, and you build a view to say everything more than 5 kilograms. Click that, it will apply the filter, which is applied to the view, which then gives it through to you. All right. And yeah. Thank you very much. Is it pizza time? Okay, guys, you can join us for pizza. You got about 2.5 minutes before it's done.